Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 2002 martial arts reboot sequel, Black Mask 2, City of Masks. Now, before I get around to sharing more of my thoughts on this film, I would like to give a special shout out yet again to Brock for requesting this review. And if there's another film, TV show, or topic that you'd like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to either my PayPal or to my Patreon. The link to both is in the video description down below, and I will try to get to your request as soon as I possibly can. Now, Black Mask 2 is one giant WTF disaster piece. Like, this film is bad. This is a bad movie. But it's not a rant because it's the kind of bad movie that is genuinely so bad it's good at times. And the way that it's just so unbelievably terrible, it reaches a level that I have not seen that many films reach. So it's one of those movies where it is such a mess in terms of the narrative, in terms of the tone, in terms of so many other aspects of the production. But as botched as it is, it's still kind of entertaining. Like, it's that kind of movie where it's like, yeah, it sucks and it's bad, but I can kind of watch it though still. Like, it's a train wreck kind of film, but it's a kind of train wreck that you don't mind revisiting now and then. If you know what I mean. It's directed by Tsui Hark, and I think this is definitely one of his worst films in his filmography. And I wouldn't argue against anyone if they consider it to be his worst. But his direction, considering what he was working with, it's not really that problematic. It's not really that difficult for me. Like, I think the direction is fine. It's okay. I think it's pretty above average when it comes to the various different fight scenes in the movie and some of the sequences involving the monsters. But there's other scenes in the film where the direction is just not up to the task uh, when it comes to showcasing some of the visual effects, when it comes to some of the moments that happen in the film's finale and the climax, when it comes to scenes that are supposed to be a little bit more, let's just say, less over the top, a little more serious. Those sequences don't come across that way at all. It's almost like Sui Hark just kind of gave up and didn't even want to try to direct the scene seriously. So it just comes across as comical. And scenes that are supposed to be full of tension or horror, they're laughably inept. Like, they do not come across that way at all. So the direction, yeah, it's not the worst thing ever, but Sui Hark has definitely done better than this. It definitely does seem like there's a lot of moments where he's trying to inject his signature style into the film, and at times it kind of works, but then there's just so much jank and so much wrong with this movie that there's only so much he can do. He's still very limited. So even though he's trying to inject his signature style into it, there's just so much about the film that's just so wrong and so just mind-numbingly dumb that it just comes across like he's trying to make a gourmet meal out of a pile of shit. You know, it's that kind of thing. You almost kind of feel bad for Sui Hark because he's a very capable, strong director, and what he's given here is just absolute garbage. It's he's trying to turn trash into treasure, and he just isn't able to do it. It's written by Jeff Black and Charles Kane, and the script is the biggest offender when it comes to this film. It doesn't know what it wants to be. The tone is all over the place. The tone in the original, the first Black Mask, it was more consistent. Yeah, it was tongue in cheek at times, but it felt like it still knew when it needed to be a little serious And when those serious moments happened, they still carried some genuine weight. Here, that never happens, and it comes across like even more of a comic book film than the first movie, but not a good comic. This comes across like one of those really bad, cheap comics you would find for cheap in a long box at your local comic store because nobody bought any of the issues, and the comic book store owner has like a million back copies. That's that's the kind of writing you get here. There's something involving a wrestling federation, and the wrestling federation is run by this corrupt like gangster type character played by Tobin Bell of all people. And this guy is not only a gangster type, but he's also a geneticist, and he did experiments on these wrestlers and infused them with animal DNA, and then out of nowhere one of them starts turning into the lizard. It literally is the lizard from Spider-Man, and it just starts flipping out and beats up on this other guy in a bathroom. This other wrestler named, he's not called the Undertaker, but you can see what they're trying to do with this guy. I think, what the fuck was the guy's name? Hellraiser. They call him Hellraiser. Uh, no, he doesn't have pins in his head. There's no connection to Pinhead at all. I wish, but no. He's more. It looks more like an S&M gimp than anything else, really, or like one of those random gang members from the Double Dragon movie from the '90s. But and speaking of the Double Dragon from a movie from the '90s, like that the tone of that film is honestly what this reminds me of, and that's not a good thing at all. So you have Hellraiser gets beat up by Iguana, and then Black Mask shows up at some point, but it's a completely different Black Mask, but he still has superhuman abilities. I think he still has the same origin too, something along those lines. And he fights the iguana, saves this kid who happens to be the Hellraiser's son. And then there's once again a romance here, but it's with some kind of doctor lady. And there's this whole fling that happens between her and Black Mask at some point. You have the geneticist played by Tobin Bell, who has his team of wrestlers, and he's having them steal radiation isotopes so he can solidify their transformation or something. It's insinuated that he's using them, and they have a clock, a death clock, where their mutations will kill them, and he's not telling them the truth. And so that leads to one of them called the Chameleon, played by Traci Lords of all people, to head off on her own. And there's a lot of comical, jokey bits in this script, and it's not funny. It doesn't work. There's stuff with Hellraiser's son, which is really bad. And then there's Scott Adkins, who's bald, and he has this goatee that makes him look like Cypher from the Matrix. I think that's the character's name. So he's got, or looking like Joe Pantoliano in the Tax Man, and so yeah, he's got this fucking stupid look. He's got this bald head, this just lame looking goatee, and silly, stupid looking goggles. He plays Dr. Lang. And Dr. Lang is tasked by this other guy who might as well be Dr. Claw, because you never see the guy, but you hear his voice and it's all booming and imposing. And he sends Dr. Lang to mess with Moloch, who's a guy played by Tobin Bell, the geneticist who acts like a gangster. And of course, you have people who are under the geneticist. One of them is the wrestling promoter, King, who's played by Jon Polito. And there's this whole subplot involving Black Mask being a wrestler, and then Black Mask gets injected with Puma or Panther DNA. And I'm like, what is this now? A remake of Puma Man? What the fuck is this? And you have scenes where Black Mask transforms, and it's laughable. It is so laughable and bad. He turns into like a half man, half panther hybrid or some shit, or maybe it's not panther, but it was cougar. I don't know. I don't care. It's laughable, and it all culminates with this master plan that Dr. Lang has, where he's going to utilize Dr. Moloch's technology and create a bomb that's going to mutate everybody in at the stadium for this big wrestling match. And this wrestling a plot is so poorly written. Like it's almost like it's not almost. I don't think any of these writers ever saw an actual wrestling match or watched any WWE or any WCW or anything, because this federation doesn't act like any wrestling federation I've ever heard of or ever seen in my life. You don't even see any real matches for one, and it just seems like there's one main event and that's it. There's no other wrestling cards. There's nothing on the card. There's no other matches. There's no tag teams. There's no nothing. There's no other stables. There's just like 5 wrestlers, and every now and then they wrestle one another for a main event in a stadium or on television, and that's it. And you're like, yeah, that's not how wrestling works. And there's this final fight between Dr. Lang and Black Mask. And Dr. Lang also got injected with a serum, which makes him half electric eel, but you never see him transform. He just has electric powers, and he gets defeated in the just most pathetic way possible. He gets involved in a fight with Black Mask. He's trying to phase through a statue, and he just gets stuck in the statue's ass. That's basically what happens. He's just stuck in the statue's ass halfway through and then dies. And you're like, what? And there's this Black Mask gets a cure at some point. So now he's no longer turning into an angry pussy. That's literally what he was turning into, was an angry pussy. And gets the girl. And then you're like, what the fuck did I just watch? The hell was that? Oh, Moloch also got turned into a head, just a head in a box, like it's something out of Futurama. That happened too, because Dr. Lang was like, I only need your brain. I don't need anything else. I'm just like, yeah, if only these writers had a brain. I think they could have used a brain transplant. Maybe it would have allowed them to write an actual quality screenplay. The cast, it's different. I will give the film this as another reason to watch it at least once, is just for this collection of cast members. It's pretty wild. It's pretty out there. I mean, you have Andy Owen, who plays Black Mask, Can Fung, who I think he had acted in some stuff before this, but he did not know any martial arts. So Yun Wu Ping, who did the fight choreography for the first Black Mask, and who did the fight choreography for this, he sent his ass to some Shaolin temple and was like, figure out some wushu, like, because I can't work with you. You don't know what the hell you're doing. And so he went to some Shaolin temple, learned some wushu techniques, and it was passable, but you could tell that the guy wasn't a real martial artist. Honestly felt like more like an underwear model than a martial artist. And he has this relationship that he forms with this doctor lady, like I said, Dr. Marco, played by Teresa Maria Herrera. And the two of them don't really have that much chemistry, so the romance just doesn't really work. It just fizzles out. But the supporting cast is ridiculous. And you got Tobin Bell, Jigsaw himself, who plays the geneticist, the evil geneticist, Dr. Moloch. You got Tyler Mane, who plays Thorn, who is, I think, Dr. Moloch's right hand man, who has like claws. Which is funny because there's a character named Claw, but he doesn't have claws. It's this other guy with claws. It's like part plant too, somehow. So yeah, Tyler Mane, Sabretooth from X-Men, plays a Thorn. You got a guy named Oris Arroyo, who isn't as familiar as Wolf, Werewolf. You got Scott Adkins as Dr. Lang. Sean Marquette as Raymond. Traci Lords as Chameleon. Jon Polito as King. Andrew Bernarski as Iguana. Rob Van Dam, yeah, the whole fucking show as Claw. Apparently, he tore up his knee shooting this film, which that's very unfortunate. Well, I guess it actually was Andy Owen's first on-screen appearance, but it was actually the second film uh, that he did, because his first film was released after Black Mask 2, the first movie that he shot looking for Mr. Perfect. You have Robert Allen Mooks, who plays Snake as well, and Michael Bailey Smith, who plays Hellraiser. And Michael Bailey Smith, I remember him because he was, yeah, he was in The Hills Have Eyes 2 as Papa Hades, and he was the sequel, the sequel to the Hills Have Eyes remake. He was Super Freddy in Nightmare on Elm Street 5, and I think he was Ben Grimm. He was the Thing in the 1994 unreleased Fantastic Four film, and that film's not great either. But that film is a masterpiece compared to this movie, and that's saying a lot because we're talking about the 1994 unreleased Fantastic Four movie. But yeah, the cast it's kind of fun to see Rob Van Dam and Andrew Bernarski and Scott Adkins and Traci Lords and Tyler Mane and Tobin Bell, but Andy Owen is more like Andy Oh no, like oh no, like what are you doing? Like you can't carry this film. You're not a lead. It's like when Bruce Locke from RoboCop 3, who played the robot ninja in that, decided that he was going to be a star in a film called Lone Tiger. It was pretty laughable. And it's equally as laughable here seeing Andy Owen try to be a martial arts superhero and be a suave badass, and doesn't pull it off. It's just like he can barely pull off the wushu wire fu fights. And the only other thing I can really say that's really worth a shit when it comes to this film in terms of watching it is the practical effects when you do see them. Like, there's some decent practical monster effects. Honestly, it reminded me of something I would have seen in Guyver 2, Dark Hero, and it made me wonder what a Guyver 3 would have been like if Tsui Hark did that. In fact, I wish this was just Guyver 3. Bring back David Hayter and have Tsui Hark direct it, or have a different Asian actor. Andy Owen, maybe he could play Guyver, because then he could just be the guy who he's playing the Sean type character, and then you have an actual martial artist play Guyver in the suit. You have the same creatures. Like Dr. Moloch, fine. He could be a member of the Zoonoids. Like, you could have just had like be Guyver 3. I wish that we had that instead of whatever the hell this was. But some of the monsters were cool. I will give the film that. Snake, Iguana, Claw. Claw was crazy. Such a weird but genuinely cool design, to be honest. It's like kind of like a spider, kind of like a crab, and then like it also is like a squid. Like, it's a really unique looking design, and I love how you have all these unique designs for the creatures. Snake, Claw, Chameleon isn't as unique, but she has some different sort of touches in terms of the color of her skin. And she can turn invisible, and and she has that power. But Wolf is just Wolf. It's just a shitty looking werewolf. That's all he is. This is a crappy werewolf. I'm like, oh great. Everyone else looks cool and is kind of unique looking. Even Thorn with his claw hands, but and fucking Wolf over here is just a shitty werewolf from like Spirit Halloween. Um, but yeah, there is some fun to be had with the monsters and when it comes to Black Mass fighting the creatures. But that only goes so far because then you're stuck with Scott Adkins and his electric powers and his stupid goggles and his stupid silver pants, and then him getting caught and stuck in a statue's ass at the end of the film, which is fitting because the movie is mostly ass. But like I said, it's the kind of film though where it's bad and it's pretty smelly, but it's kind of entertaining in terms of just seeing the train wreck that unfolds in front of your eyes. And it is fun to see that cast. It's quite a cast. It really is. The film features some cinematography as well, but I don't know exactly who did it because Wikipedia doesn't even bother to mention it. I'm gonna look it up on IMDb because I think the cinematography was intriguing. And there were some times where the cinematography I think definitely did try to add to the film as best as it could. Oh yeah, Tsui Hark did have a story credit. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Yeah, cinematography was by Wing Hang Wong and William Yim. They worked together. They did some decent work considering just how rank the overall script and story is. The music by J.M. Logan was not memorable, but it was okay. It fit the film all right. The editing of Angie Lamb and Mark Romak is more the same, just kind of there, just kind of a all right sort of editing. I want to give the special makeup effects artist credit. Soda FX did some work for it, which you can definitely see that because Soda FX they've done a lot of different sort of stuff. The in terms of like practical makeup effects, and they did some really good work in the past. But the visual effects, though, I can't say anything about that. Visual effects are bad. Some really bad visual effects in this. In terms of the CGI in particular, it looks like a bad PlayStation 1 game. It really does. It is aged like milk. It looks like shit you saw in Mortal Kombat Annihilation. Like it's at that level of CGI in terms of how crap it is. But it's only like 102 minutes, so it definitely isn't too long. So I'll give it that. Like, there is a lot of stuff that happens, but I mean, there's a lot of nonsense. Yeah, apparently the Dr. Claw voice I was talking about, it's actually just a giant brain. so, so it's even more WTF because you're like, what? So now Black Mask Creator is just a giant brain in a jar? What the hell? What the hell is going on here? And yeah, it's not good. It's not great by any means. But honestly, I have seen worse films than this, and I can get some so bad it's good enjoyment out of some of the performances and some of the cast members and the practical makeup effects and just the batshit insanity of it all. So those are my thoughts on Black Mask 2 City of Masks. Pretty bad movie, but the kind of bad film that you could kind of have some fun with and laugh at it with some friends. Um, Not what I would call a cult classic or a gem, but there are worse films out there with much lower levels of entertainment and a lot less going for it. But that's not saying much. It's still not what I would call a good movie or a good sequel. But that's just my opinion of the film. But anyway, thanks for watching my thoughts on Black Mass 2, and until next time, I'll see you later. See ya.